Okay, good morning. Welcome to the 7-day look back report. It is February 20th, 2024. Here we are, 8:30 a.m. We got some fresh data hot off the presses that we're going to be going through this morning and talking about what's happening in our market, if it makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. If you remember last week, I had challenged the group that this week I was going to make y'all come up with your own interpretations, takeaways, talking points, etc. And so I'm going to ask that you pay attention as we go through some of this data, and before I tell you what I think, I'm going to get your takes. All right? Sound good? Let's get into it. So, as of this morning, as of about 30 minutes ago, the data for the last 7 days in PPAR looks like this. We have 188 new listings, average price point of $591,000. That's the highest number we've seen in a really long time. Of course, average can be skewed easier than median. Average will, if you have a $3 million listing, it can pull the average up pretty substantially where that wouldn't affect the median at all. Median 473, right in line with what we have been seeing. So I can tell you right now, right off the bat, if we were to go in the specifics of homes that were listed over the last 7 days, I think there are probably 2 or 3 really high dollar listings and probably a higher than average number of $1 million plus listings to see our average price on the new listing side skewed up that high. Pendings under contracts, 226, kind of right in line with what we have been seeing. 513,000 as the average, 442 as the median. Days on market continuing to come down there, as we've seen consistently over about the last 6 weeks. Sold price sold 159 properties. Average price of 468, median price of 445. Nothing really jumps out there. Although that number, 159, we're starting to catch up on sold properties. So, as a recap, sold delays pending under contract by about 4 weeks. Pending under contract, as you can see, days on market, 45 is the average right now, but about 5-6 weeks is what we've been seeing on the market. And so the sold properties today represent homes that were listed 8-10 weeks ago. On average, not across the board. Obviously, some happen really quickly. And yet, on average, we're talking about 8 or 10 weeks ago that these homes were listed. If you go back 8 or 10 weeks, we find ourselves smack dab in the middle of December, the slowest part of the real estate market. And so to have 159 properties closed today, obviously those went under contract 4 or 5 weeks ago. So in January, not in December, and yet they, on average, were listed in December. And so we're going to start seeing sold property numbers increase as we're getting out of the December listing season. All the delays are now catching up, and we're going to very, very shortly be solidly into the January listing season for sold properties in the next couple of weeks. So that number should continue to increase week over week for the next few weeks. We're 159 today. Withdrawn, expired, canceled, nothing there. Active on the market, 1522. We have, I feel very comfortable in saying we have stabilized in the inventory. We're not continuing to see, we'll probably see a dip 2 weeks from now when we turn over the month, and yet we fell really hard over about a 10-week period. Probably 35% reduction in total inventory, and now we're seeing a 4-week change of 3% down. That's nothing. That's very, very little movement. We've kind of stabilized the low point of inventory for the year. All right. So I gave you some analysis there without even really giving you the talking points. When we do some comparison between all these numbers, we got the 1 year, the 6 month, and the 1 month, and then obviously the 1 week, the numbers that we just reviewed. First thing I want to do, so we've got a 6 month versus the 1 year, and the 1 month versus the 1 year. So these are comparing different length trends to a 1 year trend, to a long trend. And when I see these numbers, they're pretty similar. I know that there's a higher number of the decrease of sold price over the last month compared to the last 6 months on these numbers when you look side by side. And yet, there's a lot of similarities. Let me go full screen. I apologize that I wasn't already there. There's a lot of similarities between a 6 month and a 1 month comparison when you're looking at a long trend. And so, yeah, that's just interesting to me that over the last month and over the last 6 months, we have a similar relationship with the long trend of 1 year, the similar relationship with the 1 year trend. Which means there are some similarities between our market over the last month and our market over the last 6 months. I hope that lands. If not, oh well. Okay, 1 month versus 6 month. This is comparing those two instead of comparing them each to the 1 year, and you can see the difference between these two numbers when you do it this way. And then the short trend. Okay, so let me put this question up here. Question that you've been seeing a lot in our team meetings. I want to get your takeaways. What do you think? What do you think? And I'll just sit here in silence if nobody wants to throw anything out. I've got some takeaways, but I want to hear what you think. What is a talking point? What is something of interest? Is this still like a full sheet full of numbers? Is this still overwhelming? What do you think? There's no wrong answers.
Yeah, Chris, for me, I'm still trying to figure this out. You know, I've never delved this far deep into the numbers, and I'm trying to learn. So that's me.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question then, Walt, if I can. Would you play with me for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. If you had to take something from this sheet without me telling you what it was and go to a buyer,
Right.
what is something that you think you could take? Let's just, even just looking at the number of sold new listings, the number of sold, the number of solds. So we're at 159 today. You see where that number is?
Yeah.
All right. Over the last 4 weeks, we've been at 132.
Yes.
On average. Over the last 6 months, we've been at 138. Today, we're at 159. So, what does that say? What does that? Don't even think about it to a buyer or to a seller. What does that say about what's happening to sold, the amount of solds?
Well, there's more homes that are being sold.
Right. Right? There's more homes that are being sold. If it is true, Walt, that there are more homes that are being sold than there have been over the last couple of months, what does that mean?
That they, you know, if that's the trend, if more homes are being sold,
that's good, isn't it?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I didn't answer your question.
No, it's okay. This is the way that we get there, though. So if it is true that there are more homes being sold, is that a good thing?
I'm trying to figure. So for a buyer or a seller?
Either way. What about for you?
For me, yeah, that's good. inventory is starting to sell as opposed to staying off. You know, like the days on market has shortened up, right? So that's a
Yeah,
good thing for a real estate agent.
correct.
Uh,
Are there a lot of people who have felt frozen in their home because they don't want to give up their interest rate, number one, and they don't know where they would go, number two? Are there a lot of people in that category? And the more homes that open up and the more homes that do start selling and coming on the market is going to encourage more market activity, right? Could we determine that to be a reasonable uh, assumption?
Yeah, I mean, I also think that, you know, we're starting, so for me personally, there's a lot of people who, military-wise, who are trying to sell their home. Like I've got listing appointments set for people who are trying to sell their home because they know they're going to be coming down on orders and they're trying to move back on post so that when they get those orders, they can just not have to worry about selling their home.
Yeah.
So, for me, that's what's going on. So people are getting ready for the PCS season. So that means more inventory, I think, is going to come. Look, Chris, I have no idea. I'm trying to be like you when I grew up. All right. So
No, this is
forgive
all
me
good.
if I'm
Well,
bumbling around, but
I appreciate you throwing out there and having a conversation with me, for sure. Anybody else? While Walt gave you a lot of time to think about this, come up with anything that you can see here in the numbers. If not, I can just move on. Let's do that. All right?
I was gonna say something.
Yeah, go for it, Amy.
I think that December maybe wasn't as slow as we all thought it was. Or maybe how it typically is, because if the solds are higher now, like you said, these are likely the properties that went on the market in December.
Yep.
So that's encouraging. It looks like the buyer activity.
So, but keep this in mind, buyer activity, properties that are selling today indicate buyer activity from 4 weeks
From
ago.
December?
No.
Oh.
From January. So
True.
these homes were listed in December and didn't sell.
Right.
That's a lot of them. So December, from a buyer activity standpoint, when we looked at the numbers a month ago, it was like December was the lowest we'd ever seen.
So there was seller activity in December, which
little
led
bit.
to more
Yeah.
buyer activity in January.
Yep, buyer activity in January, and as we've been talking about over the last about 4 weeks on these calls, buyer activity has picked up, and we can see that in the numbers. And now, when buyer activity picked up 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, now it starts to show up in sold properties. So we saw an increase in pendings and under contracts, a big jump 4 or 5 weeks ago, and now we're going to start seeing a big jump in sold properties. And so that's where it translates to these numbers get locked in and they become historical, because pendings and under contracts can come on and come off and come on and come off and come on and come off. There's nothing historical. They're just an indication, whereas sold properties then become historical. It is final. And this is the first week. I mean, 2 weeks ago we saw an uptick. This week we're seeing another uptick. And I think that we're going to start seeing that getting up to, if you look at our 1 year average sold properties, 168 is our 1 year average. Our 6 month average is 138, and we have two weeks of the last month above that trend. So we're going to continue, I think, to see sold properties ticking up because of the buyer activity. But yeah, those are all good points. Okay, let's look. I want to show you 2 numbers here, and I want you to tell me what you think it means. I guess 3 numbers. So we have a sold average price down 6% over the last month. And we have more new listings than we have solds over the last month by like 50 a month. So there's 200 more properties on the market than were sold over the last month, and properties have sold for 6% less. So why is this good news to buyers? Corey, tell me.
It's a buyer's market.
Right? According to those numbers, yeah.
And it's cheaper than it has been.
More inventory to choose from, and it's cheaper than it has been. Is that true in these numbers? right? You can't argue with that. There's more inventory relatively or in comparison in the short term what's moving. I know the inventory is down 3% over the last 4 weeks, and yet that factors in withdrawals and all that kind of stuff. But when you just look at what's coming on the market, what's going off the market, it's cheaper, and there's more coming on than going off. So average sold price is down 6% over the last month. Also, there's way more homes coming on the market than are selling. Right? That is an accurate statement according to this data. That is an accurate statement. I know you could argue with me on some of those points, and yet I'm just trying to take some good news to some buyers so you can have some conversations, and this is an accurate statement. Average sold price is down 6% over the last month, and also there are way more homes coming on the market than are selling. All right, let's talk about sellers. Here's a couple numbers. Over the last month, 16% increase in pendings and under contracts. And in the last week, and we said this last week too, we're starting to see listing price coming up. It was going down for about 7 to 8 months, and we're starting to see listing price go up. We have 3 weeks in a row that it's going up, and you can see in the last month compared to the last 6 months, it's up 1%. So the takeaway here to sellers, buyer activity has picked up 15% over the last month. We can see that in the number. That is true. And we're seeing listing prices moving upward in reaction to this trend. Because of buyer activity picking up, people are confident listing their homes at slightly higher prices. And it's being received in the market. We're going to see that continue into pendings and under contracts. And we're going to see that continue into sold properties on a delayed schedule, 8 to 10 weeks. So these are talking points you can take to your buyers and sellers today and accurately represent the stats in the market that you learned about. Hopefully get some business out of it. Questions on those takeaways? Great. Mortgage rates. We ticked up from last week. If you remember, we talked last week, it was sitting just under 7. We've bumped up. Again, we're going to be hanging out here for a while, so get comfy. Be sure and work all the different angles, work with different lenders and see what programs they have to bring interest rates down. There's a lot of options out there, a lot of them. And so if your client is hesitant because of interest rates, you should be educating them on all the different options they have to bring interest rates down through using seller funds, some creative ways to do that, to shift down payment monies, all kinds of things that you can do. There's no reason that somebody shouldn't be locking in a rate under 6% really, really easily right now for conventional financing. That's all I have today, guys and gals. If you don't have any other questions, y'all go make it a great day. You should have gotten a link to all the raw data. That I know a couple of y'all asked me for that. Save that in your own drive and use that data to create your own talking points to show your clients the truth in the numbers and how they can find comfort in the stats, whether you're a buyer or a seller client. So y'all go make it a great day.
Thanks, Chris.
Tell Linda.